Welcome to The Pillars, the podcast of the 363rd ISR Wing of the United States Air Force. I'm Chaplain Jim Bridgham.
And I'm Dr. Jerry Walker.
On each episode of The Pillars, we find a brief resilience topic so you can practically fix any potential roadblocks you encounter and finish a better wingman, airman, and leader. Today we're here in Las Vegas. We were sent to Nellis to assist our airmen and their dependents as they respond to the immediate aftermath of the Las Vegas mass shooting. We thought it would be helpful to record this podcast and get it out to our whole wing, so you can pass it on to those you know who've been affected by this tragedy. So how should we begin this today, Dr. Walker?
Well, I think it's important first to acknowledge that this is a very difficult time for a lot of people, not just those who are here in Las Vegas, but really everybody across the nation who woke up on Monday morning and who heard about this either on the news or on social media or in the paper. And it's never easy to respond, internally when we're faced with a tragedy, especially a mass tragedy of this nature, because very similar to like 9/11, it tends to rock our foundation. We're caught unaware when we didn't see this coming, and it can almost threaten our personal sense of safety and security. But along with that, people are going to react differently. So I think that's one of the first things I want to acknowledge is that maybe people don't react the way that we expect them to, and there's not one straight away method that we should react. But that being said, there are, I think, different levels in terms of people who are affected by this. I like to visualize it like a target. So if you think of like a dartboard, there's different levels, and then in the center you got your bullseye. Those, I think, correspond, or that area corresponds best with the people who were directly impacted by the tragedy. So in this particular situation with the mass shooting, those would be the people who were there at the concert, who witnessed things firsthand, who are directly involved in the situation, the immediate aftermath. But a much larger number of folks are going to be in the next outer ring of that target, which is those who are indirectly affected. So maybe they weren't there, but they knew somebody who was there. They had a friend, a family member, maybe a neighbor, an acquaintance, somebody who was present. And so they were concerned for that person, maybe wanted to reach out to them, make sure they're okay, and see if there's a way they could support them. But also at the same time weren't quite sure how to do that. And so they're wrestling with some of their own fear and anxiety as well. And then in the broadest sense, we have our community. And this, we can think of this in terms of our whole Las Vegas community and how they've responded to the situation and how they've come as a city to rally around everybody who was affected. But also, all of us throughout the 363rd ISR wing and really in the larger United States and the United States Air Force. So I think it'd be helpful to talk about it in terms of those three different groups of people, so that way it resonates with all of us.
And why we're going to approach it this way is we know not everyone was there, not everyone was indirectly affected, but as our nation, we've all had some kind of impact from this, and we want to give you some skills on how to deal with it, in whether you're in the middle ring or the outer ring. So if you tune in, even if you don't think you're directly or indirectly affected by this, just as part of our community, our wing community, our Air Force community, please tune in for some specific ways that you can contribute.
So I'm going to start with the folks who were directly affected. And if you were one of those folks who were there and present for the mass shooting, please know that my heart goes out to you, and both of us have been thinking of you and praying for you. And what we hope to do is to lend you some tools that you can use to help you get through this tough time. One of the first things I like to tell people is that we all react in a variety of ways, and in the immediate aftermath of a situation like this, it's completely normal to have your fight or flight response shoot up from 0 to 100 and for it to actually stay there for a little while. And we've talked about the fight or flight response before, but it's basically like your anxiety and your fear meter. And what that does when it stays elevated for a longer period of time, it can mess with your sleep. It can mess with your appetite, either making you more hungry than normal, or completely sapping your appetite altogether. It can make you moody. So some people will get really sad. Some people will get really irritable. It's like you're just dealing with a whole bunch of stress. For those of you who maybe witnessed some people being shot or yourself shot, those memories or those images may stick with you for some time, or you may be constantly reminded of it, or just find them popping into your heads from time to time. That is perfectly normal, okay? And for the majority of people, these things get better with time, and they actually start to decline in the few days or even weeks after the event. So doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. In fact, we don't actually even diagnose post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, until at least a month after a situation like this. So, it's perfectly normal to experience these things because it's a normal reaction to an abnormal event. So, I hope that's some consolation if you have been experiencing those things. If it does really start to bother you and you find that it's not going away, there are some things that you can do. We'll touch on a few of those, but you can also seek help from somebody like myself, psychologist, or a chaplain. One of the biggest things to do in these times of need are just to rally around people who you trust and who you know will support you. Those can be friends, family members,
a church, synagogue, anything.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean you have to actually talk about the situation. It's really just to be around people who can express their care and support for you. One of the next things I encourage people to do is to establish a normal routine. Or actually not establish, just to go back into their normal routine. Because you're living at this 100% stress, it can be really tempting to try to do anything you can to curtail it, which in a lot of people's cases will mean avoiding certain things that might normally minimally stress them out. That actually has a counterintuitive effect, because you'll find that avoidance actually stays with you. So I encourage people to still get up in the morning around the same time, still go into work if they're feeling that they're capable of doing it, still spend time with family members, go out, do those things that you would normally do, and try not to let it disrupt your normal mode of life. And then another big thing is to take good care of yourself physically. Just by the same token, what I was just talking about, may be really easy to let your physical health decline. Maybe you back away from the exercise, or you start eating consolation foods, or maybe start drinking more alcohol, smoking more, using more tobacco products. This is the time where you need to really focus on staying physically healthy. So focus on your sleep, on your eating habits. And you're going to say something about exercise.
The next one's actually exercise. It's related to that. And specifically, if you can, yoga. On Nellis, they do offer it, I think, 3 times per week in the base gym. And why I recommend it is there's a type of mindfulness meditation associated with it. It's also in community. And there's a lot of research after 9/11 with those who survived in New York who sought out yoga and spiritual practices that really helped them. They were also physical.
And that was, I remember yoga was one of the things that the survivors of 9/11 said was most beneficial.
It was one of the most beneficial, more than psychotherapy at all. The final one, too, is just a general meditation practice, and also deep tissue massage and any kind of relaxation. If you feel like you're just too stressed out, any type of just meditation, whether that's using an app like Headspace or Calm, or finding massage, a deep tissue massage specifically that can help you along, that kind of physical touch can help a long way.
Yeah, and we're just trying to counteract some of that fight or flight that's going on with you right now in any way possible. And you actually did yoga today.
I did. In fact, while you were going around, and we've talked to quite a few people today, it was just a pretty long day, and I said, how can I get through this? So I went over to the gym and just took a yoga class. Now, I can't do everything. I'm not the most flexible person, but it helped, and it just helped to lower my stress level to a point where we can now come here tonight and record the podcast.
Absolutely. One of the things, too, that we're talking about that we've been recommending to airmen is a journaling technique. Now, I'm pretty big on journaling because I find that my thoughts really get clarified, and I can organize them into something coherent that really makes sense. Whereas when they're just running around my head, it's all abstract images and thoughts and emotions running around at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But when I slow down and write, for some reason it starts to really come together, and all of a sudden I am elevated to a higher level of understanding and insight. It's almost like a spiritual experience sometimes. Well, what I would encourage folks to do is to, when they wake up in the morning, write out 3 things that they want to accomplish that day, or that they're hoping to accomplish. And the reason that we do this is we want to have things to look forward to, and we want to build on that sense of hope and optimism. And you'll find that as you write these things down, you're coming that much closer to achieving it, because it's almost like saying a goal at the beginning of the day, and you're telling yourself, I'm going to have a good day, I'm going to get things done, I'm going to be successful. And you're setting yourself up for success in that way. And then at the end of the day, whether you accomplish those things or not, write down before you go to bed 3 things that you're thankful for.
Absolutely.
And you'll find that you're over time, as this becomes a regular habit, practicing these things, you're more satisfied with your life. Maybe you're not feeling as sad or depressed as you once did, and maybe you have a better appreciation for all the many blessings that you have in your life.
I agree.
Okay. So I want to transition now to talking about those folks who are maybe indirectly affected. So, they've got a friend or a loved one who was present at a mass tragedy, and they want to know how to support them. So aside from sharing with them the tools and tips that we just talked about, you can also just simply express support. And we were talking about this earlier today, Chaplain, how a lot of times people don't even take you up on that support.
No, they don't. In fact, we went around section to section and said, all you can do with that airman who was indirectly affected or affected, just tell him I'm here for you if you need anything. Yeah. And, give him a handshake, a pat on the back, and it makes a huge difference.
And just that, is often enough for some folks. I mean, they may or may not take you up on it, but just knowing that there are people ready at a moment's notice to rally around them can have such a big impact. So, in addition to that, it's important, I think, too, to kind of check in on people periodically, because, maybe in the immediate aftermath, the first few days, folks are still kind of coming to terms with what happened, and they're not quite ready to process it. In fact, for multiple sects of people, we've noticed that they don't actually start to show some signs of maladjustment until several days or even weeks later after the incident. And so, they go along looking like they're perfectly fine, but then all of a sudden they start to crumble. So I'd encourage you, if you do have somebody like that, just kind of check on them from time to time, and try to remain aware of any kind of behavioral changes. Yeah. So,
the final one, too, I wanted to hit on is that ventilate and validate piece, which you've talked about before.
Yeah.
That's venting, letting them to speak out loud, and then validating what they're thinking. So they say, I just feel really upset about X, Y, and Z. You say, well, I hear you're really upset, feeling upset about that, and just validating their experience wherever it's coming from, normalizing it. But I call this the light pole theory. Like if you function nothing else but as a light pole. In other words, the person comes and speaks to a light pole. The light pole obviously can't respond. It's an inanimate object. It just provides light. Just be that light pole and just listen to the person speak and just be present for them. That alone can go such a long way. And it doesn't require them going to a counselor, psychologist, chaplain in that case. It's just requiring someone to be there and listen and validate. Now, we're not saying don't bring them, but most of the time they just need a friend who's there to listen. And listening's a gift.
Right. They don't need somebody who has all the answers or can give them practical advice. They just need to get this stuff out. But not everybody needs that.
No.
So
correct.
At the same time, you may not necessarily want to try to draw it out, but if they're coming to you saying,
just be there. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Now, what if somebody maybe does express that they feel like they need to go talk to somebody? What are some resources for folks?
So there's a number of resources for either active duty or dependent especially. Okay. So you've got the chaplain, you have the mental health, you have the military family life counselor, and then, of course, Military One Source.
Okay.
So all of these are options that are readily available. If you can't find someone, you can always call the command post. You can call through your chain of command, and they'll get you.
And that's for active duty, right?
For active duty.
So let's say we've got an active duty member who their spouse or their kids need to talk to somebody, dependent or...
At least right now, Military Family Life Counselor, Military One Source, and then chaplains are there for dependents as well. And for mental health?
Most mental health clinics are only going to see active duty personnel, so something to keep in mind. I would encourage, if dependent wants to talk to somebody, then probably the
Military One Source.
Yeah, Military One Source or NFLAC.
And Military One Source, you can Google that right now. They're a great resource. They provide, I think it's 10 counseling sessions, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 10 to 12.
10 to 12. But either way, call them. They'll get you hooked in with a local counselor, and they can do telecounseling as well, which is over a video connection. So they can do have a whole bunch of resources available for your dependents as well. And Military One Source and Military Family Life Counselors are also open to the Air National Guard as well here. And that's just something to note.
Outstanding. Okay, and that brings us to our third category, so the broader community. So, if you don't fall in one of those first two categories, you weren't directly affected, and you didn't necessarily know anybody who was directly affected, maybe you're still personally affected by this event, and you're still struggling with questions of the morality of the world, and what was the reason behind this event? What does it mean for me going forward? And that's a perfectly normal and rational thing with which to struggle. We've talked to a lot of people today who wanted to find a way to contribute. They saw this need in their community and they wanted to make a difference. I would encourage folks, if you are feeling that way, to find a manner of contribution that fits your own proclivities. So whether that's giving money to one of the many charitable organizations that are right out there right now, or giving blood. A lot of people have been doing that recently, or just giving your time to different volunteer efforts. But even more than that, just being a friend to those around you and reaching out. I'd like to encourage this Las Vegas community to continue to do something that I think they've really done well, which is emphasize the strength and the resilience of the city. One of the overwhelming themes that I gained today when talking to folks, especially those who've been here and grown up here, is that they feel like the city has responded with strength. And it was, we got knocked down, but we are coming together and we are going to fight and recover and move on even stronger than we were before. And I think that should be the message for everybody, is that, yes, this terrible thing happened, but we're going to be stronger because of it, and we're going to let it elevate us to an even better place. And then kind of like what we talked before about establishing a normal routine, continue to live your life, especially the same way that you did before. So I know there are some thoughts maybe floating around in the minds of the folks here about whether they really want to go back downtown or go to the Strip, attend a concert in the city, for that same sense of fear or insecurity that an event like this can cause in us. While that is a completely understandable response, it shouldn't stop you from doing those things that you want to do. In fact, this is the abject goal of terrorism, is to keep us from being able to live our lives. And the response from the city and the increased security actually makes this even safer than it was before. And so I'd strongly encourage folks to, if they have those reservations, still challenge yourself to go out and to live that life. Do those things that you want to do, live that lifestyle, but still remain vigilant. Don't completely let your guard down, right?
Yeah, and the next principle is just to rely on your community of faith. And if you're a person of faith, whether that's church, synagogue, mosque, whether you're in the chapel community, or even if you're in like a yoga or meditation practice, find that community of people who are spiritual that can support you in that spiritual pillar. It's important to find that somewhere in your life. And then also, this is the biggest suggestion, and I believe this is a spiritual practice. The spiritual practice here is fasting. What I'm going to suggest, though, is in a fasting in a non-traditional sense, and that's fasting from social media. What I think so much of social media can become very negative, whether that's on your Twitter feed, Facebook, Snapchat, etc. There's a lot of negativity. And right now it's understandable. People are looking for someone to blame because there's not, although we have the person, the suspect, we don't know all the rationale behind in the choice. And people are just lashing out in every direction. And there's a lot of anger. And I know where that's coming from. You know where that's coming from. But it doesn't help us to read that and fill your soul, your heart, your mind with that. I'd suggest that you take maybe a 48-hour social media break and just say, give her a break and just shut off your Facebook. It'll be there. Your notifications, you'll find them, and it will help you so much.
And same thing with the news too, especially for those folks here in Las Vegas. Seems to be the main story that's dominating the news cycle right now.
Absolutely.
So,
and you'll be able to catch up on it in 2 days, I promise, and they'll have a lot more data.
And what we've seen from the psychological research is that folks who are able to do that and just take a break from their social media, from their phone altogether, as impractical as that sounds, they get happier. Their anxiety goes down. Mm-hmm. They sleep better. It's phenomenal. And this I think is a perfect time to do exactly that, to take that break with the intention of then going back to it later.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well. Las Vegas, Nellis Air Force Base, we want to express to you our deepest love and support. Know that we are here for you, and many other airmen and Americans are here for you and out to support you. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us. You can contact us on Facebook and on the global address list.
Yeah. And most importantly, know that God is with you in this, and even in the midst of tragedy, He is present. So we want to thank you for listening to The Pillars, the podcast of the 363rd ISR Wing of the United States Air Force. I'm Chaplain Jim Bridgham.
And I'm Jerry Walker.
Until next time, if you need us, again, reach out to us on the global address list or Facebook, and we just thank you for what you do and know that we're praying for you and we're here with you.